you walk the streets of an old city at dusk, there's a certain stillness that settles over each worn and weathered home you pass by. These old streets have seen centuries of footsteps long before us. You begin to wonder what lingers here. What echoes still remain in places where so many lives have unfolded. In Colonial Williamsburg, some houses seem to hum with memory, as if the land and structures themselves recall what centuries have tried to erase. If you follow those thoughts far enough to the quiet corner of Nicholson Street, there you'll find a dark red house that seems to breathe its own history. Sometimes called Virginia's most haunted home. If your mind rarely strays toward the supernatural, the story might hold little appeal. Yet, for those drawn to the unusual, the sudden, and the mysterious, those rare sparks of curiosity, the tales that follow may seize your imagination. From the street, the home seems ordinary. But when Peyton Randolph, the first president of the Continental Congress, lived in this Williamsburg home, he wouldn't have known that after his death, the house would become a vessel for those who never truly left, and, as legend has it, including himself. Whether you visit the Peyton Randolph house in the bright light of day, or as the night creeps in, there's always a sense of history and a quiet uneasiness pressing against its exterior walls, spreading across its colonial ground. Before the Revolution, the Peyton Randolph house wasn't just a home. It would have at times been a place of tense family conflict. As Peyton worked for colonial independence, his brother, John Randolph, stayed loyal to the crown and eventually fled America for England, dying while out of the country, and unfortunately never seeing his family again. Just weeks before his loyalist brother had left the colony, Peyton himself died in Philadelphia, leaving the house to carry the traces of both their stories. I couldn't help but wonder if the brothers' opposing paths seemed to settle into the very walls of the house. If one were to explore the servants' quarters at the nighttime hour, it's not hard to picture the impending fear of those huddled inside here when illness once ravaged the colony. In 1748, a smallpox outbreak swept through Williamsburg, claiming the lives of 4 residents inside the house. Today, touring the servants' hall, kitchen, and living areas attached to the main house, visitors sometimes report cold spots, faint whispers, and a sense of presence of the enslaved people that once lived and worked here. Passing through the long covered corridor that leads toward a room known as the closet, the atmosphere takes on a curious weight. Betty Randolph, Peyton's wife, was known for her presence and influence at the house, and through the years, I've occasionally heard some suggest that her reputation wasn't the most endearing, however true or not this may be. Visitors report seeing her presence in this very room, where she is thought to have spent much of her time maintaining the order of the household. Strange anomalies have also been reported in the upper floor rooms, including her bedchamber, the room where she may have struggled with depression following the loss of her husband. It's said she brought in a separate bed for a guest to use to keep her company in the very bedroom she once shared with Peyton. Accounts from other locations within the house describe seeing a figure of a colonial gentleman appearing briefly before vanishing, with a scent of tobacco often said to accompany it. From the main entranceway, any observer inside the house can easily envision the Randolph family and their household servants frequently ascending and descending the grand staircase centuries ago. Whether touring the house in the daytime or during a late-night ghost tour, I often look down and ponder the thought of the same boards beneath me, now worn and groaning, once held the footsteps of Randolph, Jefferson, Washington, Rochambeau, and Lafayette long ago. And it's Lafayette himself who some claim once reflected on a haunted happening that took place inside the Peyton Randolph house. In 1824, during his celebrated tour of the United States, General Marquis de Lafayette, a soldier of great experience and courage, visited the house. During a slow exploration of the upper floor parlor in near darkness, I recalled the folklore of how he once felt a cold hand on his shoulder and heard whispers, though no one was there. It's said he once made a statement, though its truth is unknown.
I considered myself fortunate to lodge in the home of a great man, Peyton Randolph. Upon my arrival, as I entered through the foyer, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It nudged me, as if intending to keep me from entering. I quickly turned, but found no one there. The nights were not restful, as the sounds of voices kept me awake for most of my stay.
Though this tale is often shared by guides, it's definitely possible some details are embellished. But the story continues to intrigue visitors. In the early 19th century, long after Peyton Randolph had died, the property passed to a woman named Mary Monroe Peachy. During her time living here, many unfortunate happenings seem to have taken place, which has led some paranormal enthusiasts to believe most of the hauntings here involve the ghost of Lady Peachy returning to make her presence known, as well as her children on occasions. From chilling stories that stem from a modern-day maintenance worker being confronted by spirits, to a security guard being locked inside the home's basement. The house seems to hold a restless energy that continues to unsettle those who enter inside. Another story tells the tragic fate of a young boy playing outside near one of the large trees in the yard. His identity is not known, but while on the Randolph property, at play, climbing higher up the tree than he probably should have. It's told he suddenly slipped and fell to his death. Silence would have quickly settled afterward, the way it does when something terrible has just taken place. Over the years, visitors have claimed to hear soft giggles drifting through the yard and strange shadows moving through the branches in ways that make you feel like you're being watched. The memory of this tragic event is said to linger here until this very day. No matter where you find yourself during an exploration here, those who have spent years working at the Peyton Randolph house often share stories of unexplained sounds, whispers, and fleeting shadows they've witnessed firsthand. Usually a skeptic, but with some saying that 2 Native American burial grounds were found on the property, as well as all that's been rumored. My curiosity gets the best of me, and I can't help but wonder if one of the trees here might have been the very one the boy once climbed, or perhaps just a distant relative. Even being in front of the house in the calm of the early afternoon, there's sometimes an odd stillness in the air, as if the boy is still here exploring, climbing, still playing, though unseen. When you enter inside the Peyton Randolph house, it's impossible to not sense traces of the past all around you. The rooms hold moments from long ago, many we may never know. Almost as if the people who lived here never truly left. Inside the dining room, I found myself thinking that this might be the very place interpreters had described when recounting small, unexplained movements that take place. A candlestick that shifts in placement, a chair tilted slightly, or an item in the pantry closet apparently subtly out of place. Could the old mirrors that still hang on the walls capture Randolph himself returning? Perhaps to check that the table was properly set, or that some forgotten household task was attended to. Even in the brightness of a morning hour tour, it remains an intriguing possibility. But during the evening hours, it feels far more probable. Some have claimed to hear the soft sound of a woman singing, drifting across the yard where moonlight falls on the outbuildings that once supported the daily life of the estate, before the sound quickly vanishes into thin air. Taking place not long after the story of the boy that fell, another tragedy touched the house. A young girl, perhaps the same age as Lady Peachy's children, is said to have fallen from a second-story window. Not entirely sure which window it may have been, and there's no records remaining of the circumstances that I could uncover. But the story itself is known to have left an eerie imprint that still dwells for those on the lookout for her phantom. Visitors often describe feeling a sudden chill near upstairs windows, even in the heat of summer. Some notice a faint scent of lavender lingering in the air, soft and almost comforting, yet haunting. And others swear they've seen a pale figure standing still and looking outward from the upstairs window. During the years the Peachy family occupied the Peyton Randolph house, their time here seemed to be continually marked by hardship and sorrow. An uncle in the family is said to have ended his own life in the house, leaving a residue of grief that some say is settled in here. Once walking through the parlor, I faintly recall the air feeling slightly heavier, perhaps from the many haunted stories I had absorbed long before my visit, but nonetheless, my mind was alert, scanning the room for any unusual occurrences. At night here, especially during a Williamsburg ghost tour, or if you're ever lucky enough to do a solo exploration of the house, the frightening effect is much more pronounced. Could it be that, just for a moment, the sadness of those lost here seems to press gently against anyone inside the house, reminding us they're here, even when we have forgotten? Unlike during the Revolutionary War, when the Randolph Estate is thought to have served as a place to treat the wounded, during the Civil War, with the next line of the Peachy family still maintaining ownership, the house again served as a makeshift hospital after the Battle of Williamsburg in 1862, this time for the Confederate Army. Soldiers arrived injured, some never to leave, taking their final breath here. Today, the house still seems marked by that time in some ways. The floors occasionally creak as if footsteps return. Strange shadows often reveal themselves, and each room inside the house can carry a reminder of the lives that were once here when you least expect it. When speaking of the former owner of this well-known colonial estate, there's an overall sense by those fascinated by the world of paranormal that Peyton Randolph himself may still linger here. His decisions, his presence, and the vast history he was a part of seems to settle into the many rooms of his home that visitors explore today. Investigating the place he once roamed, it's fairly easy to imagine him here, reviewing papers in his office, hosting discussions, and then climbing the West Wing stairway of the house to retire to his bedchamber after a long day's work. Even in the calm of daylight, many who visit the house sense his presence and the spirits of those who remain here, while some chalk it up to an overzealous mind, reading too much into every sound and silhouette that crosses their path. At night, though, that presence feels heavier, accompanied by echoes that drift through each room. Like silent guardians, they move unseen, watching and waiting, never truly leaving the old red house, still standing in Williamsburg.